and they kept delaying it and delaying it. It's a new product called Velocity, and it's an A-rated carrier. I write it through a farmer's brokerage. They have 1.5 billion in reserves, but they're admitted. And what an admitted carrier means is they're admitted to do business in Texas. The state of Texas checks their financial solvency. So when they say they're A-rated, they really are A-rated. They've really got that backing behind them. If you have a non-admitted carrier, there is no no one checks the company's financial solvency, and they charge premium taxes on tax on the premium. And that's when you're getting a quote. When you get quotes from some of the more fly-by-night kind of smaller insurance companies, you're more likely to get a surplus line. That's what it's called, a non-admitted carrier quote. Because sometimes they're cheaper, but as we all know, when it comes to insurance, if you have a major loss and there's no money to pay the loss, it's not worth saving 20 bucks or 30 bucks a year. You know, it's really important you stick with the major carriers such as Farmers, Allstate, State Farm, you know, where they're admitted carriers where you know there's the financial backing there. So that's real important. But Velocity is an admitted carrier. Other companies do sell it besides Farmers in this area. I know Frost Bank has it as one of their carriers. And also there's a company in Rockport, a real small insurance company that has Velocity. I found out this morning when I was doing another meeting. Someone told me that they had just bought Velocity through this real small insurance brokerage. So there are other companies that have Velocity besides Farmers. But Farmers has chosen it to be their kind of their depopulation, to move people from TWIA. That's what like a lot of the representatives and stuff are trying to do, is depopulate TWIA. And that's why you've seen all these companies come into town like Weston, some of the other Windstorm alternatives. Some of them aren't as highly rated financially. I didn't start quoting them. I knew this product was coming. It's A-rated, it's admitted. I knew it was going to be good for my customers financially. So that's why I jumped on this bandwagon and trying to move as many of my customers and give them the choice of having Velocity or staying with TWIA. But if you look down on this quote, here, we've got a stapled sheet. We quoted a house for $327,000, and we did a 3% deductible with $179,000. Yes?
Okay, and with Velocity, you don't need to have Windstorm.
I'll get to that in a little bit. You're smart.
No, I just had a problem client. This is how I know.
Okay, so does everyone have a sheet? Doug, do you want one? No, thank you. Okay, so if you look down, it's $179,000 in personal property. This quote for Velocity is $2,319 for the year. If you flip to the next page, this is a quote through TWIA. The same house, $327,000, $179,000 in personal property, and you can see the premium is $2,931. So it's about $600 a year difference in the premium, which is substantial. That, you know, that's 50 bucks a month on your house payment. You know, that can mean someone can put their kid in ballet or, you know, whatever, their children in extracurricular activities that maybe they couldn't have done before. So I've moved, I know we wrote 11 policies last week, new business with Velocity, enrolled a bunch of our current customers at renewals. We're moving them over. So it's really a pretty hot product. One thing I want you to notice that Nadia brought up, on the second page here at the bottom, it says total surcharges. This is a surcharge of $382 on this house, and that's because this house didn't have a WPI8 on something that was before 2009, so it's getting a 15% surcharge on the premium. Velocity does not have surcharges if you do not have a WPI8. Okay, so this is vital for you all. When you've got a listing and the house, let's say, was built in 2011, and there is no WPI8 on that property, on the main structure, you know, maybe it was a smaller builder, or they just fell through the cracks and you can't get the builder to do the WPI8 or finish the WPI8. At this point, before velocity, it would be a major problem and it wouldn't be insurable under TWIA, and we would have to move it to one of those non-standard, those non-admitted windstorm companies. But because of velocity, now we can write it without a surcharge through velocity. Okay, so velocity does not require WPI8s. And that's real important when your customer is buying a house, maybe the roof doesn't have a WPI8, or you're selling a house and there's not a WPI8. That was often deal breakers. I know Laura Commons had a deal breaker. She had a house that didn't have a WPI8 that she's got listed right now. And another realtor heard my presentation the other day, Max Walker, and he said if velocity would have been out 3 weeks ago, because this just started last Thursday, writing velocity. So this is that new, this hot off the press. But if velocity would have been around, his clients would have bought that house, but they didn't buy the house because there was no WPI8. So when you've got that situation, you don't have to worry about it breaking your deal now. You can just send them my way. Okay, so that's really important. It's a game changer for you all. You know, if there's no WPI8, it doesn't mean that they have to have substandard, higher rated insurance. They can still have a good company with great rates. Okay, any questions on that? Let's see, what else can okay, velocity. There are some roof limitations. For instance, if the house has a 20-year roof and the roof is 15 years old, we can still write it with velocity. But once that roof hits 16 years old, we cannot write it with velocity. So roof age matters to velocity. If it's a 30-year roof, we can write it if it has a 20-year, if the roof is 20 years old. But once it hits 21, we won't be able to write it with velocity. So roof age is important to velocity. Those WPI8s aren't important, but the roof age, okay? And that'll be my job, staff's job, to remember that. And you know, we can look up if there is a WPI8 on file, the age of the roof through that, or the original when the house was being built. That's a way we can determine. Let's say though, one of the questions I asked the underwriter when they were down here, what if there is no WPI8 and we don't know the roof age? We will go off the statement of the owner of the property when they put the roof in, and they will accept the statement of the owner. Wow. So they're pretty flexible. Okay, so that's really nice to have some flexibility. Let's see. Are there any questions so far? So really, I don't see a disadvantage. The rates are lower as long as your roof is, you know, good roof. As far as age goes, the velocity will accept the property. They do go out and inspect just like TWIA. There are a list though, like my clients, they gave me a list of my clients that they aren't going to inspect. They're just going to roll those properties over. And so there is kind of a little bit of a free inspection, so you don't have to worry about debris in your yard or trees touching the roof and have to trim them in order to get that coverage. You know, TWIA re-inspects every 5 years, and velocity is not going to be re-inspecting every 5 years. So once you've got that replacement cost coverage, you've got it. The claims for velocity, the head of velocity for the state of Texas is actually an ex-claims manager for farmers. And they have a lot of farmers adjusters that have moved over and are working with velocity. So I feel very comfortable as far as claims. They've got a big claims team. You know, if something catastrophic was to happen. They've been in Florida for a few years and have had experience with hurricanes, and it went really well. So I feel confident as far as claims go.
Where are their claim offices? Do they have them here?
No, they don't have one in Corpus Christi. They're in Austin. But lately, they've been needing to go to Dallas more often, right? Luckily for us.
I have a question. What about like a window replacement? It also don't need WPIA or?
Velocity will not, you don't, in order to get a quote and have insurance through Velocity, you don't need the WPIA. That's a good question. I mean, it's always good to get it certified, if, you know, to get it certified. I'm not telling everyone, don't get anything certified anymore, but if it's a situation and you're buying or selling, don't make it something that, a reason not to buy that house or whatever. They can still get good insurance. I mean, the whole purpose of certification is to know that the home was built to the latest current codes that at the time it was built. And that's why certification is important, because you want it to be built to the correct codes. It's just they're taking away the hindrance if there was a problem and the builder didn't do it, and you know, now the consumer's in a bad situation. It's getting rid of that hindrance. So I'm not saying don't get certified. Get certified, you know, it's the best thing to do. Make sure whatever you're doing is to code, because you want it to be code, because you want your house to be as strong as possible when a storm does come, or those windows strong as possible when the storm does come.
But in the older part of the town, like off of the Santa Fe or Staples, the older homes, and sometimes people not educated to know about like a windstorm, and they change your windows 1 or 2 in a room, you know, in a house.
And plus sometimes they get an investor to just do the roof and they don't get it certified, they didn't know about the certification. There you go, new roof and not certified.
You know, the people across the street from my mom and dad, he did the roof himself. It looks normal and everything, but there's no certification on it, but he did it himself. Kind of scary. But, I mean, it's a nice street. It's in Country Club. I mean, it's not like it's, you know, a ratty old house. Yeah.
When they go to sell that?
What?
Is that when they go to sell it, they don't have their
They pay a higher premium.
certification, what happened?
Well, that's what I'm saying now. This is a game changer. It used to be they would have a surcharge if it was before 2009 and there was no WPI8. But if it was after 2009, we couldn't even put it on the waiver program. And they would have to buy insurance. I would sell them insurance through a company called Giavera, which is through the farmer's brokerage, but it's a non-admitted carrier. So you don't know the financial strength of the company, even though, I mean, Farmers has it through their brokerage. I mean, it should be a good company, but no one checks, you know, and so now this is a game changer. So if there isn't a WPI8, you can still get a good company, Velocity, an admitted carrier for the windstorm. Nita, do you have a question? Yeah, you looked like you had a question.
I know. Well, I have a question for you. Okay, so on the windstorm certification for a new door, if you replace the door, do you have to have a windstorm certificate, or is it when you replace the door and the frame?
If you're just taking the panel off, that's not required.
Okay, it's when you do the whole frame and the door and everything in that.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So how is Velocity able to give us these savings of like $600? Could they even say how they're able to do that, or what sets
It's
them
just
apart?
underwriting that they, you know, they're hoping to get large volume of business, and through the law of large numbers,
Yeah.
and they went through the agent's windstorm books, and they picked the choice properties that they want us to roll over without those inspections, and so they're getting what kind of cherry picking the good stuff, and then the older homes and, you know, maybe less desirable for an insurance company, they're gonna have to go through the underwriting. So they're trying to pick the better and leave out the less, and they wanna keep the less desired products with TWIA. Okay, any questions about Velocity? No?
And
Any
in new
questions about TWIA?
In new construction, it's made it, I know like a farmers on the new construction, it's very inexpensive insurance.
Yes.
The velocity will be the same or will be less expensive?
We're doing it on a case-by-case basis right now. Every time someone calls in for a quote, we're quoting TWIA, we're quoting velocity, and if it's a new property, then we're quoting the Windstorm in with Farmers, and it just depends. Sometimes the Windstorm in with Farmers is gonna be less expensive than even velocity. Depends on the credit of the person. Velocity doesn't look at credit, so if they've got great credit, probably it's gonna be cheaper to go with Farmers with the wind in. If the credit's shakier, then they're gonna probably be better off going with velocity. The closer it is to the water, the less competitive velocity is gonna be. So I quoted a $200,000 house out on the island, and it was about $50 a year cheaper. So cause it's so close to the water. Velocity will not write within 1,000 feet of the ocean, not the canals, but the open ocean. So there are some limitations, whereas TWIA will write there. So there's still gonna be reasons why you write it with TWIA versus velocity. I mean, it's not 100% every house goes with velocity. Yes?
What would like a house about $200,000 on the island cost for insurance?
Well, it's gonna depend upon when it was built. If it's built to the newest wind codes, the seaward code, or if it's an older home and it's built to the inland code. But it's about, if it's an older home, I would say it's about $2,000 a year. It's about generally 1 to 1.25% of the sales price of the house is a good rule of thumb when you're kind of estimating on
A
insurance.
little bit cheaper for the newer construction?
Newer construction is quite a bit cheaper. Right now, like on new construction, I know, Victoria, we had one the other day you were doing, and it was like 0.5%.
And then it also depends on, if it's a brick home or a stucco home. Brick homes always get a better rate too.
So when you're helping people look at homes and they're torn between two and one's brick and one's stucco, you wanna let them know that brick house is probably gonna be less in insurance long-term. Over 30 years, that'll make a difference in what they're spending.
How much less is it usually for a brick home compared to a stucco home?
Maybe 25%, would you say, Victoria?
Couple hundred, just depending on the value of it.
Yeah.
What other stuff is like cheaper, like brick and stucco? Is there different stuff like metal roof and shingles or anything else we should know about? 'Cause that's pretty
Yeah, metal roofs though, you have to add, they are less expensive, but we